Shalom Shabbat, my brothers and sisters, so-called black man or black woman, the children of Israel, the 12 tribes. My name is Israel Sampson. Today I will be doing a lesson called The Gentiles That Christ Came For Were the House of Israel, the 10 Northern Tribes. And the only reason I'm doing this particular lesson is because there's been lies being taught at many camps today that the other nations can be saved, that the other nations that Christ came, that the Gentiles that Christ came were the other nations of the world. And because, they look at the word Gentiles as automatic just talk about everybody around the world will be dealing with salvation and who the Christ came for. But they don't understand history because they don't read book and they don't even study what the word Gentile actually means. Because we look at the word Gentile, it's not always talking about the, other nations. Matter of fact, we're going to look at the definition of Gentile. And we're going to find out it's not always talking about the other nations. And so most people go use the Strong's Concordance Dictionary, which is I got from there. And so it says Gentile means Goyim in Hebrew language. And number is 1471. It means nations, foreigner, heathen, and pagan. And it says troop and animal too, by the way. And so, so when you look at the word, foreigner, when you look at the word heathen, when you look at the word pagan, when you look at these words in different definitions, it will tell you pretty much that anybody could be a pagan, anybody could be a heathen, anybody could be a foreigner or stranger. Because we look at the word foreigner, it's the same word as stranger. It give you the same definition. Because when you're a foreigner, you pretty much a stranger. When you're a stranger, you pretty much a foreigner. And foreigner and stranger is the same thing, so it means Gentile. That just common sense itself. But when I looked at the LLI.com, and the source I looked up online, and I looked at the word Gentile there, it says Gentile in Latin means gentilis. It means foreigner, heathen, and pagan. So a lot of people don't understand Gentiles does not, when you read carefully the definitions, Gentiles does not always talking about the other nations. Because we look at the word heathen, pagan, and foreigner, which is the same thing as stranger, anybody could be a foreigner, anybody could be a stranger. Like for example, every black person we see, it doesn't mean we know. Because if you don't know that person who's an Israelite just like you, he's a stranger to you. Because you don't know him. You don't know what he's going to do. He's a stranger. It's just that simple. But when you look at the word, like I said, when you look at the word Gentiles, it does not always talk about the other nations. It's talk about, Israel being called Gentiles too. Because when you look at the word foreigner and stranger, foreigner and strangers, can be anybody. And that's what's going to start my lesson out right here in Genesis chapter 15, verse 13. Because we're going to prove all things through Scripture, and we're going to prove that these Gentiles that Christ came for were the 10 Northern tribes. And also I'm going to explain the history, the split of Israel. I'm going to explain the history, what happened to the house of Judah. I'm going to explain the history, why the house of Israel, the 10 tribes, got kicked out. Which is none of your elders is not doing these camps, who's under the 501c3. So I'm going to go to Genesis chapter 15. I'm going to start verse 13. Genesis chapter 15, verse 13. And it says, he said to Abram, know for certain that thy seed shall be stranger in the land which is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall be afflicted for 400 years. I'm going to stop right there, and I'm going to go back into a verse again, where it says, know for certain that thy seed shall be stranger in a land which is not theirs. So the Lord told Abraham, look, your seed going to be in a foreign land. They're going to be called strangers there. But the question is, people got to understand when they read this verse, why the Most High told Abraham was going to happen to the seed, and why they was going to be called strangers. Why they going to be in a land which is not theirs instead of their own land where he blessed Abraham. Why? Because when you read carefully, the Lord was prophesied about the curses of the children of Israel because of their transgressions of the Lord. Pretty much the Lord was prophesied in Deuteronomy 28 to Abraham before his death. And what's going to happen to his children later on once Abraham died, and how they're going to be scattered all around the world in lands which is not theirs, and to be called strangers. That's what sounds like to me when you read and understand it. The Lord was prophesied the curses to Abraham was going to happen to his seed. He's not talking about the other nations because Abraham's a Shemitic. How can Ham and Japheth be the seed of offspring of Abraham when they come from different bloodlines of the sons of Noah? Because the only seed that Abraham had was Isaac, He had Ishmael. He had other children through Keturah. But the seed of God that the seed that children that Abraham had, that the Lord kind of as his firstborn, was Isaac. That Isaac had Jacob. Jacob had 12 sons, and 12 sons became the nation of Israel, the 12 tribes. That's the seed of Abraham right there. So since the Lord prophesies about Deuteronomy 28 chapter, since we're gonna be strangers in the land which is not ours, let's read Deuteronomy 28 chapter. Because when you read carefully when he's saying this to Abraham in Genesis 15, why your seed gonna be strangers in the land which is not theirs, which is not theirs. So let's go to Deuteronomy 28 chapter. I'm gonna start verse 15. So I'm going. I mean, because the Lord, because we have many curses. We had a lot of curses. But I'm just gonna only read the few relates to what he said to Abraham, why they was gonna be called strangers in the land which is not theirs. So I'm gonna start at Genesis chapter 5. Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 15. Deuteronomy 28 and verse 15. And it says, but it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken to the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe, to do all his commandments and his statutes which I commanded thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. He said all these curses. We have many curses. But I'm only going to read a few what relates to why the Lord told Abraham, you'll see you're going to be strangers in the land which is not theirs. So I'm going to skip down to verse 32. It says, that sons and that daughters should be given to other people, and that eyes should look long and fell with longing for them all day long, and there shall be no might in their hand. Now I'm going to skip down to verse 64. 64 and 65. And it says, in verse 64, and the Lord shall scatter thee among all nations, from one end of the earth even to another, and there shalt thou serve other gods, which neither thou nor their fathers hast known, and even wood and stone. And among these nations shalt thou find no ease, neither shall the soul of thy feet have rest. But the Lord shall give thee a trembling heart, and falling eyes, and sorrowing heart. Now let's go back to verse 63, where the Lord said, I should come to pass, that as the Lord rejoice, 64 I mean, the Lord shall scatter thee among all people, from one end of the earth to another. And so the Lord said the same to Abraham. Your seed shall be strangers in the land which is not theirs. Why? Because not disobedience to transgress towards the Lord, according to Deuteronomy 28 chapter, he said, if we don't keep his laws, statutes, and commandments, I'm going to put these curses on you. And one of the curses he did with the children of Israel, he scattered us all among the other nations in the world. So that makes sense when the Lord told Abraham that your seed should be strangers in the land which is not theirs. Why? They're going to be called strangers, which is another word for Gentiles, in the land which is not theirs. Because according to Deuteronomy 28 chapter, verse 64 and 65, the Lord told them, I'm going to scatter all Israel unto the whole earth. Why? Because of our sin. So pretty much the Lord was prophesied Deuteronomy 28 chapter to Abraham, our father. What's going to happen to the children of Israel later on down the line. Now let's go to verse 37. And it says right here, verse 37, and thou shalt become an astonishment and a proverb and byword in all nations whether the Lord shall lead thee, which is he scattered us to. So not just, a lot of people don't understand. We read about byword. We all know it's talking, it's not always talking about us being called niggers or coon or porch monkey or tar babies. That's the basic things right there. But people fail to realize that being called a byword means African American, which is a white boy name, which is a Gentile name. We call ourselves Gentiles by calling ourselves African Americans. You have Afro Greeks over there in Greek today that look like me today. They call themselves Greeks. That's calling yourself a Gentile. And not just that though, but by us being the land of our enemies, we are strangers. And they're going to treat us like strangers. They're going to let you know you're a stranger. Like I said, my introduction, when you look at the word stranger, it means foreigner, which means that anybody could be a foreigner, which is another word for Gentile, which is another name for Goy in Hebrew language. So anybody can become a Gentile. Anybody can become a foreigner. The children of Israel disobeyed God's laws, and he telling us right here why we was called strangers and why we was in the land and our enemies, according to Genesis 15 and verse 13, when he prophesied this to Abraham. But that's not all. Now I'm going to go to Leviticus, the 26th chapter, and verse 37. Leviticus 26 and verse 37. Almost there. Verse 37. Leviticus chapter 26 and verse 37. I'm going to read. And it says, they shall fall upon another as it were before the sword, when none pursueth. Ye shall have no power to stand before your enemies. Verse 38, ye shall perish among the heathen, in the land of your enemies shall eat you up. Did not the Lord told Abraham the same thing in Genesis 15 and verse 13, where he said that your seed shall be stranger in the land which is not yours? See, people got to pay attention to key words when they read scriptures, because the key words will give you an answer to certain verses in scripture in the Bible that you never understand. The Lord told Abraham, your seed gonna be strangers in the land which is not ours. They identified these lands, which is not ours. He tell you the same thing like he did in Deuteronomy 28 chapter, at verse 64, 65. He tell you in verse 38 that we should be in a land of our enemies. Let me read verse 38 again. Ye shall perish among the heathen, and the land of your enemies shall eat you up. Verse 39, they are loved of you shall pine away their iniquity in your enemies' lands. Also the iniquities of their fathers shall they pine away with them. Let me read 39 again. They that are loved of you shall pine away in their iniquity in your enemies' lands. And also the iniquities of their fathers shall they pine away with them. So he tell you the same thing. The Lord told Abraham, your seed gonna be strangers in the land which is not theirs. And he tell you that the land of our enemies, he tell you that these right here, the land that we're gonna be strangers in, this is the land of our enemies. So guess what? We are foreigners and strangers, because we became strangers to the Lord because of our transgressions. And that was the part of the curses that the children of Israel had to go through every time they disobeyed God's laws. But you gotta understand, with the 10 tribes, the house of Israel sinned against the Lord, he did not have mercy in the house of Israel, the 10 tribes. So he kicked them out the land. They were scattered amongst the countries of the north, which is we call Assyria, all the way to Asia Minor and to Russia today. And they became strangers after that, according to the book of Hosea chapter 4, verse 17, if I'm not mistaken. But the point is, what the Lord said to Abraham, your seed shall be strangers in the land which is not theirs. Being called a stranger is a byword, according to Deuteronomy 28 chapter verse 37. And he telling us right here that the land what we don't know, the land which is not ours, is the land of our enemies, because we scattered in the land of our enemies to this day. Now y'all got the understanding of that. Now let me read verse 41 right quick, because it's important I read verse 41 and 42 to get the point that this is talking about Abraham's seed, not the other nations in the world. Because the other nations in the world is not scattered, because they still got their own country. They don't make no sense for a nation be scattered and they own the countries in the world. They got their own land. So that should tell you right there, all that mattered, this not talk about the other nations. This talk about the children of Israel, those Gentiles who were scattered, because the word Gentile means stranger or foreigner. And I just showed y'all that Abraham's seed was going to be called stranger. And it's the children of Israel. Now verse 41, that I also have walked contrary into them, and have brought them into the land of their enemies. If they uncircumcised heart be humble, and they that accept the punishment of their iniquity, then I will remember my covenant with Jacob, and also with Isaac, and also my covenant with, let me read it again. Then I will remember my covenant with Jacob, and also my covenant with Isaac, and also my covenant with Abraham, and I will remember and will remember the land. Remember the land. Which land he talking about he gonna remember? The land of Israel, because he gave it to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and the 12 sons of Israel. That's our heritage. So notice he's telling you that who he made a covenant with in verse 42. He made a covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob pretty much, and the 12 sons of Israel. So that tells you right there that since we the one broke the covenant, we became strangers. We were scattered to the lands of our enemies. This ain't talking about the other nations here. And that should tell you right there, Gentiles is not always talking about the other nation, as I proved it through the scriptures, that right here, that Israel was called strangers too, because of their transgression, and that was a byword according to Deuteronomy 28 chapter verse 37. Now I'm going to go back to Genesis 15. Matter of fact, before I even go back to Genesis 15, it's understandable that people got to understand the history of the split between the house, the 12 tribes of Israel as a kingdom. You got to understand the history. And I'm going to explain this history through precepts in this Bible. Because when King David came into power, David ruled the entire kingdom of Israel. He ruled all 12 tribes. He ruled the southern and the northern kingdoms. But in fact, it wasn't even such thing was the southern northern kingdom. He ruled the south and he ruled the north of Israel as a nation, all 12 tribes. And when he died, his son Solomon, King Solomon, came into power. And he sinned a great sin by marrying outside his race, outside the married the daughters of these other nations that the Lord commanded children not to do. And because when he did that, he brought great sin to Israel to the point the Lord told Solomon, look, in your time, I'm going to let you rule all 12 tribes. But your son, he's going to rule one tribe for himself. And I'm going to give the other 10 tribes to your service. And for that point on, that's what happened in the split. That's why you have your southern kingdom, which is the house of Israel, which is the house of Judah. Then you have your northern kingdom, which is the house of Israel, the 10 northern tribes. The house of Judah, which is the southern kingdom, the southern nation, after the split, it was consisted of Judah, Levite, and Benjamin. But the house of Israel, which is the northern kingdom, which is the 10 northern tribes. And out of those 10 northern tribes, the tribe of Ephraim was the chief tribe. He's the chief tribe out of the whole 10 tribes out of the house of Israel, that kingdom, because the Lord set up Ephraim, just like he set up Judah to be the king in the house of Judah. He set up Ephraim to be the king in the house of Israel, Joseph's son. Now, before I even go a little further, we'll read it for ourselves what actually happened. Don't take my word for it. We're going to read about the split of the house of Israel. So we're going to go to 1 Kings chapter 11 and verse 1 through 13. 1 Kings chapter 11 and verse 1 through 13. We're going to read the split, what happened. That's something that none of these camps don't never do. They teach all these. They teach about the spiritual Israel BS. They talk about all nations could be saved. The nation that Christ came was the other nations. They don't show no precepts to that. And they ain't breaking nothing right according to the Bible. Because the Bible said, rightfully divide the word of God, truth, that you will not bring shame upon yourself. These camps bring shame upon our people to the point the Lord's going to disown us if we don't get it together with the precepts. But we're going to read the history of Solomon and how how the Lord split the kingdom of Israel into two separate nations, two separate kingdoms. Now we'll go to the book of 1 Kings, chapter 11, and I'm going to start verse 1, I'm going to end at verse 13. But King Solomon loved many strange women, and together with the daughters of Pharaoh, and the women of the Moabites, and the Amorites, and the Edomites, and the Zidonians, and the Hittites, of the nations concerning which the Lord said unto the children of Israel, ye shall not go into them, neither shall thou come unto you, for they shall certainly turn away your heart, and after they gods, and Solomon cleaved into these he loved. Verse 3. He had 700 wives, and 700 wives of princes, and 300 concubines. So those 700 wives of Solomon and the 300 concubines he had, those were the other nations the Lord commanded the children of Israel not to marry. And he broke that law, and that's who the 700 wives and the 300 concubines came from. These were other nations. And that's the reason why the Lord, we're going to read what the scripture had to say. Let me read verse 3 again. He had 700 wives and princes and 300 concubines. And his wives turned his heart and turned away his heart. For it came to pass, when Solomon was old, that his wives turned his heart after the other gods. His heart was not perfect with the Lord. It was not perfect with the Lord his God, as was the heart of David his father. For Solomon went after Ashtoreth, the gardens of the Zidonians, and after Melchah, the abomination of the Amorites. And Solomon did evil in the sight of the Lord, and went not fully after the Lord as David did his father. Then did Solomon build high places of Chaphmosh, an abomination of Moab, and the hill that is before the Jerusalem, and Molech, the abomination of the children of Ammon. Likewise, He did, and he for wait. Likewise, he for all the strange wives which burnt incense and sacrificed it to their gods. And the Lord was angry with Solomon because his heart was turned from the Lord, God of Israel, which had appeared unto him twice, and had commanded him concerning this thing, that he should not go after gods. He should not go after other gods, but he kept not that which the Lord commanded. Wherefore the Lord said unto Solomon, for as much as this is done unto thee, thou hast not kept my covenant and my statutes, which I commanded thee, I will certainly rend the kingdom from thee, and will give it to thy servants. Because you understand, King Solomon was the king of all 12 tribes after David. The Lord said, you know what, for David's sake, I'm going to let you rule all 12 tribes. But I'm going to rend the kingdom from you after you, and I'm going to give one part to your service. Because Judah was the king tribe. And anybody who came out of Judah ruled the whole 12 tribes of Israel. And that means that the other 12 tribes became servants to Judah. But when he sinned, guess what? Because King Solomon, the Lord told King Solomon, look, I'm going to give a kingdom to your son, but I'm going to give all 10 to your servant. And that, we're going to read the rest. Did not withstand it in that days, I would not do it for David, that father's sake, but I will rend it out in your hand of that son. So when King Solomon's son came into his stead at the death of Solomon, then his son Warrior he took us, he became king, and the Lord gave one tribe to him to rule. That's where we get the house of Judah right there. So pretty much Levi and Judah was the tribes that he ruled. But the other servant, which came from Ephraim, he gave the 10 tribes to Ephraim, and he ruled the rest of the tribes of the house of Israel, which became the northern kingdom of Israel. Verse 13. And howbeit I will not rend away the kingdom, but I will give one tribe to thy son for David my servant's sake, and for Jerusalem Jerusalem's sake, which I have chosen. Because the Lord had to come through Judah. That's why he said for Jerusalem and for my own sake. But like I said before, he just said it himself right there. He'll give one tribe to your son, that was Warrior. And he'll get the other 10 tribes to Jeroboam, which is the house of Ephraim, which is the chief tribe of the 10 northern tribes of the house of Israel. So he gave that tribes to Ephraim, Jeroboam, and the northern kingdom in the northern parts of Israel. Now y'all understand the split, because when King Solomon had disobeyed God by marrying the strange women. Let's read that again. Then we're gonna go to Deuteronomy chapter 7 after this. But the king Solomon loved many strange women, and together with the daughters of Pharaoh, women of the Moabites, the Amorites, the Edomites, the Zebulunites, and the Hittites, and the nations concerning, the Lord said unto the children of Israel, ye should not go into them, neither should thou come into thee. Come in unto you, for certainly they will turn away your heart after their gods. And so I'm going to stop right there. So the Lord told that to the children of Israel, the laws that Solomon broke right there, that brought that great sin to the point the Lord break the kingdom into 2 nations and 2 kingdoms. Now let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 7 and verse 1 through 4. We're going to read that, because it's going to tell you the same thing we just read in 1 Kings 11 and verse 1 through 3. We consider that laws that King Solomon broke that brought that great sin to Israel. So we're going to go to Deuteronomy chapter 7 and verse 1 through 4. Deuteronomy chapter 7 and verse 1 through 4. It says, verse 1, when the Lord thy God shall bring thee into the land where thou goest to possess it, and has cast out many nations before thee, the Hittites, and the Girgashites, and the Amorites, and the Canaanites, and the Perizzites, and the Havites, and Jebusites, 7 nations greater than thou. Verse 2, where the Lord thy God shall deliver them before thee, thou shalt smite them, and utterly destroy them. Thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor show mercy unto them, neither shalt thou make marriages with them. That daughters thou shalt not give unto his son, and his daughters thou shalt not give unto that son, for they will turn away that son for father me, and that they may serve other gods. And so will the anger of the Lord will be kindled against you, and destroy thee suddenly. Now the Lord is serious with this one. it was crucial that we stick within our own nation, because every time we marry outside a nation, we bring curses to our own people. That's the same thing what happened to King Solomon. When he married these 700 wives and 300 concubines, who are the other nation, he brought great sin to Israel. It was so bad to the point that the Lord himself was about to destroy Israel because of the sins of Solomon. You know what I'm saying? So for the sake of Israel as a nation, the Lord had no choice but to break the nation into two separate kingdoms, two separate nations. That's why you have your house of Judah. That's why you have your house of Israel, which is the northern kingdom, and Judah was the southern kingdom. Now I'm about to go to the book of Jubilees, chapter 30. And this is why the reasons the Lord had divided the kingdom to two nations. He did this for a reason, so he don't have to destroy us as a nation. Because y'all got to remember, King Solomon had great influence in the world because of his wisdom. Everybody want to be like King Solomon. We want to be like King Solomon, man, because he was our king in Israel, and the Lord blessed him with such wisdom. We try to mimic him. We do it today. Like, for example, we like Michael Jordan so much to the point we try to be just like Michael. We try to play like Michael Jordan, even though we ain't gonna let him be like Mike. That's just an example. That's the same thing what Solomon did. With his wisdom, he corrupted himself by marrying these strange women. He married the daughters of the other nations, married outside his race. When he did that, some people, you know how Israelite is. Oh, if the king could do this, I guess I could do that. If the whole nation did that, guess what? The Lord had to destroy the other nation, and then Satan would have had won. That's why he broke the kingdom to two nations, so he could save the whole nation of Israel. So he don't have to destroy us. I'm about to make a point right here, so I'm about to go to the missing books of the Bible that they took out that none of your elders don't talk about. Because they took a lot of books out the Bible, it's like they took Apocrypha out. So I'm going to go to the book of Jubilee. If y'all got a book of Jubilee, y'all can read along with me. If y'all can't, you can type it online, type in book of Jubilee, it's going to pop up. So I'm going to go to the book of Jubilees, chapter 30, and I'm going to start this off verse 7. So I'm going to go to the book of Jubilees, chapter 30, and verse 7. Sit down. Book of Jubilees, chapter 30, and verse 7. Let's read it. And if there is any man who wishes in Israel to give his daughter or his sister to any man who is of the seed of the Gentiles, he shall certainly die, and they shall stone him with stones, for he hath walked shame in Israel. And they shall burn the woman with fire, because she has dishonored the name of the house of her father. And she should be rooted out of Israel. Wow, that's serious right there. That is totally serious. The Lord said the same thing in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 7, verse 1 through 4. He said, if you do this, certainly the Lord will destroy thee. He tell you the same thing in the book of Jubilees. What else he said of Jubilees? Verse 8. Let not the adulteress and no uncleanness be found in Israel throughout all the days of the generation of earth. For Israel is holy unto the Lord. Every man who has defiled it shall certainly die. It shall stone him with stones. Verse 9. For this has it been ordained. Let me read this again. Verse 9. For thus has it been ordained, written in the heavenly tablets, regarding all the seed of Israel. He that follows it shall certainly die. He shall be stoned with stones. Verse 10. And to this law there is no limit of days. Let me read it again. For this law there is no limit of days. Let me read that again, because some of our people is retarded as hell. Verse 10. For this law there is no limit of days, and no remission in any atonement, but the man who has defiled his daughters shall be rooted out of the midst of all Israel, because he has given his seed to Moloch, and walked in purity, so as to defile it. We can read that what King Solomon said. What King Solomon had did in the book of 1 King. He married the daughters of the Moabites. He ended up, I think it was the Moloch, one of their gods they worship. What King Solomon did. I can read that. Sit down. let me see, let me see, verse 11. Verse 11. And do thou, Moses, commanded the children of Israel, and instruct them not to give their daughters to the Gentiles, and not to take their sons and any of the daughters of the Gentiles, for this is abominable before the Lord. Did not the Lord, did I just not read that in Deuteronomy chapter 7 and verse 1 through 4, where the Lord said, don't make no covenants with these other nations, don't make no marriages with these other nations, don't give your daughters to their son, and don't give their son to your daughters, whatever. Did not the Lord say that? Yes, he did. He tell you the same thing in Jubilees, but he break it down in details here. Y'all can read it. Like the scripture said, precept on precept you must read to get the understanding. And verse 12. For this reason I have written for thee in the words of the law of the words of the law of all the deeds of the Shechemites which they walked against Dinah, and had the sons of Jacob spake and said, we will not give our daughters to a man who is uncircumcised, for we were reproached to us. And before the time of them, the Lord said we ain't supposed to marry outside our nation. He just give you an example of what happened though. And what was the consequences for anybody raping our women? They got to go. The Lord made it clear that the children of Israel, we're not supposed to mix with these other nations, and that's exactly what what King Solomon did when he married those 700 concubines with 700 wives, and which is those princes and 300 concubines. He had interracial marriage, and the Lord was about to destroy the whole nation. That's why he broke the nation into two kingdoms for the sake of the sins of one man, so they don't have to pay. Because some of the children of Israel was about to do the same thing, and some of them had done it. You hear me? But the thing is, the Lord, that's the reason why he broke the kingdom into two nations, so that way he would not bring wrath and he would not destroy his own people. And for the sake of that, he broke the nation of Israel into two separate kingdoms and two separate nations, because it was the sins of Solomon brought to the nation of Israel, it was too great. Because you remember, the Lord made a covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He had to keep that covenant, because God said, my words will not be void. So the Lord's going to figure ways to spare us. And he broke us into two separate nations, two separate kingdoms, as the 12 tribes of Israel. All because of the sin of Solomon that caused that split between us. And I'm going to prove that too through this book of Jubilees. Matter of fact, let me see. Okay, verse 13. Sit down. Verse 13. It is a reproach to Israel, to those who live. Let me read it again. Verse 13. It is a reproach to Israel, to those who live, and those that take the daughters of the Gentiles. For this is unclean and abominable to Israel. Verse 14. Israel will not be free from this uncleanness if it has a wife of the daughters of the Gentiles, or has given of its daughters to a man who is of any Gentiles. He said any Gentiles, not just that one seed of Japhet. He said any Gentiles. And you know, the Edomites, even though they Hebrews like us, they was called Gentiles too. What else? What else he said? Verse 15. For there will be a plague among plague, curse upon curse. Every judgment, plague, curse will come upon him if he do this thing, and hide his eyes from those who commit uncleanness, and those who defile the sanctuary of the Lord, those have profaned his holy name. They will take the whole nation together and be judged. Let me read that part again. His holy name, then with the whole nation together be judged for uncleanness and profanation of this man. So look at King Solomon. He was that man who did that when he married those 700 wives and 300 concubines who was not Israelites. They was of the other nations. He did this, and he brought great sin to Israel. The Lord was about to judge the whole nation based on what Solomon had did. But for the sake of the covenant he made with the house of to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the Lord broke the kingdom into two separate kingdoms and two separate nations. So that way he would not destroy Abraham's chosen seed. I hope y'all getting this and understand this, why the Lord broke the kingdom into two separate nations. Because it was a sin for Israel to marry outside their race. If they did, that person and that other person who gave the marriage to the other nation, they both would be stoned and burnt alive. And the Lord was about to do the same thing, because according to the book of Deuteronomy chapter 7, he said, if he catch anybody, let me read it again. Book of Deuteronomy chapter 7 and verse 4. For they will turn away their sons for following me, that they will serve other gods. So with the anger of the Lord will be kindled against you and destroy thee suddenly. And he tell you the same thing in the book of Jubilees. If any man gives his seed, if any man of Israel marry the seed of a Gentile, any nation, that father and the daughter of Israel will be destroyed. It's the same thing. If his son married the daughters of the Gentiles, his ass got to go. He will be destroyed, in that father and that whole household, because they bring shame to Israel. And that's what happened to King Solomon when he committed that great sin. He brought shame to Israel. That's why the Lord had to break it up to two kingdoms and two separate nations. But luckily for Solomon, he repented before he died, because he still got a book in the Bible, in the Apocrypha. So the Lord spared him because he repented before he died. He knew what he did was wrong, and he brought great shame. And because of him, we still separate as a nation. Now, I ain't got that much time here, so now I explained the whole history of the house of, I explained the history about the kingdom of Israel, how they became two nations because of this. Now I'm going to tell you what happened in my next part. What happened to the house of Judah, the house of Israel after the split because of the sins of Solomon. I see y'all part 2. Shalom.